Yokoso Otakus, it's Dre here, and I think I messed up. Today we are going to be talking about a new game that's coming out on the 7th called Trails into Reverie, which is a continuation of an extremely long RPG series that I have just recently gotten into, and yeah, I think this is where I fail. So you guys have probably seen my coverage before. I've only played 2 of the games in this series, one of which was Trails into Zero, and the other one was Trails into Azure. Both of those games were really, really awesome. There's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed about them. I unfortunately wasn't able to complete either of them, which has absolutely set me up for utter and complete disaster playing this newest entry, Trails into Reverie. Main reason why is because this game appears, at least from my basic understanding, to cover concepts from the first 4 Trails games, which I never played, and parts of Azure and Zero, which I also never completed. It wasn't pretty and made for a very rough time. I am doing a first impressions instead of a review because I've only been able to play 9 hours so far. I have found this game to be extremely taxing to me. I think that in a lot of ways, if I started playing this game and I had known all the history behind it, I'd probably be super interested in it, but there is a bunch of things right off the get-go that are huge turnoffs to me, unfortunately. And it is completely my fault. I am not knocking this game whatsoever. The negatives definitely come from my own personal experiences, and I'm just going to talk about what it's like to go into this game without any idea about anything before it, really. So if you haven't played the games before, then they do have a feature that's added in, which I thought was actually kind of cool. You can actually go through the entirety of the story synopsises for every single other game. And like I said, there's a bunch of them. It literally is like Trails 1 through 4, I believe, Azure, Zero, and also novel kind of a thing that's called 6 and 9. It's just a lot. It's a whole lot. So honestly, if you want to start digging into all the story synopsises, you can do that before you play the game. I can't imagine how much time it would take, as the synopsises literally break down every single chapter of every single game, one by one. A bunch of them are just like, 3 or 4 pages of text a piece, but still, when you add all of it up, it's a lot. It's a lot of reading. As a person who just is new to this, I screwed up. I screwed up in even trying to do this. I really did. So the other thing that I found really challenging is actually something that I found challenging playing Zero and Azure as well, and that's when the game starts out, there is so much story that they just bring immediately to the forefront of the game, and there's just a lot of kind of like recap or refresher things that are brought up, which can be helpful, and it was helpful for me when I played Zero and I played Azure, but it's kind of annoying because they have this repetitive concept that they keep repeating, and it's definitely in Reverie as well, where basically you have to go everywhere all over the frickin' town before you can like do anything, and so that was a huge hurdle point for me starting this one off, because I had literally felt like I just did that with the other 2 games and their intros, and this one is no exception. One of the cool features about Reverie is that you actually cover 3 different stories, and I like that you can just hit a button and you can pick which one that you want to do. When you complete one, it'll tell you, you're going to get locked out of it before you're done. And once that happens, you can't go back into that story until you complete the other 2. But it's kind of a cool little setup to do. However, it just feels like it repeats everything over and over and over and over again. Like every story that I was in was just another time where they're like, your first goal is to explore the town, explore this town, explore this town, explore this town. And you have to just really just wander around everywhere and find just the right people to talk to make sure that you can progress into the next section. I will say that at the beginning of the prologue into chapter 1, that actually led up into something really awesome, and the story started to get really exciting. I've heard a million times from people into these RPG series that these stories are just incredible, if not overly complicated, and I have continually seen that with the last 2 games I played, and then into Reverie as well. It's just really, really exciting story. This one had a lot of mystery. There's this mysterious character named C, and you actually get to play as him through one of the arcs that you do, which is absolutely awesome. I'm looking forward to exploring it more. However, it's really hard for me to want to continue with this game because I just feel like I'm so far behind. I feel like in order for me to really feel this game, to really understand it and appreciate it as it should be appreciated, I need, for one, a ton of time so I can just explore everything, talk to all the people, and just spend hours and hours and hours exploring and learning about the world. But I also just need time to literally stop where I'm at, go back to the very first Trails game, and just play through all of them. And I work a full-time job. I'm a grown adult. I got a family I'm trying to take care of, and I'm doing this content creation stuff. And it is just really, really daunting to even think that that's something that I should be doing with my time. Again, all of this is my fault. I'm not going to lie. I've worked with NAS America, and we've got a lot of these preview copies from them, and I've really enjoyed all of these new and fresh experiences, many times playing games that I never had the chance to before. But the current run of Zero, Azure, and now Reverie, it's just, I think it's time that I need to admit that I'm not the good person to cover this kind of content. And as much as I appreciate seeing the things that I'm seeing, I'm just not able to make content for you guys that really fills that void the way that it should, especially because I just know that there's a lot of other RPG characters and even Trails specific creators that are just making really outstanding content, and it's probably better that I just don't muck up the space with the drivel that I'm coming out with at a very base level. So aside from the features of being able to switch between the different characters, the combat has also gotten really cool as well. There's just a ton of different stuff. There's 2 different ways, well, 3 technically, you can enter battle. You can either just run into the enemies or have them run into you, which definitely doesn't help you out a ton. The other thing that you have the option of doing is being able to do like kind of a basic attack, which stuns them. And we'd seen that before, like in Azure, where you can kind of get back attacks on them that way. But the third way is where you use kind of like this like superpower attack. And it's really cool. It's fun to watch the animations with all the different characters when you do it. And it makes like kind of a huge blast. And I think they call it a triple advantage when you enter into the battle if you hit them with that beforehand, and it really helps in the battles a lot. I will also say that because I'm trying to get through as much content as I can with all 3 of these games, I've played them on very easy mode. This game has a lot of different varieties of difficulty options, so if you want to play the game and have it be incredibly challenging and really just kind of muster through figuring out how these battles work really well, you can do that. But if you're a person that I guess is more akin to me, although I don't feel like I have the time anymore, and you want to just play the stories, you can set it to very easy mode. And it's definitely very easy. In fact, I think if I restarted it over, I would probably just go to easy instead of very easy, because it almost feels like a safety mode in Persona, if you guys are familiar with that reference. It's just a little too easy even for people who like easy stuff. Inside of the combat, you have, the stuff that you're pretty much basically used to from the last 2 games. You can use your crafts, which are special skills, which can do attacks or support. You have the S crafts, which are really cool as well. Those are kind of the big bang things, and they require a lot of energy to use those, basically. But you get these really cool animations out of them, and they're pretty fun to watch for each of the characters. I will say they're extremely long, and they get kind of annoying once you've seen them like 100,000 times in battles, but they do allow you to hold the plus button to skip it, which is really welcome, like extremely welcome, because it can really make those battles a lot longer. But all of them kind of have these really devastating attacks or these huge boosts for your party members. It's just kind of a really cool system. And then you have your basic, your magic stuff that you're used to in pretty much every video game, and your basic attacks. Just like the last 2 Trails games, Zero and Azure, it brings back the QUARTZ system again. So if you're not familiar with that, you're definitely not going to have a fun time with it. I mean, I'm sure some people are. I don't really particularly enjoy the system. I find it to be kind of a little overwhelming a bit. But again, this is all just kind of base level super noob information that I'm putting out there. This is definitely not going to be first impressions that you're looking at if you're a seasoned veteran and you want to know how this stands up against the tests of time. One of my favorite things in the last 2 games is they also had a fishing mechanic, and that is back in Reverie. And this time it's actually kind of boosted up, and there's a lot more to do. The last 2 games were kind of nice in their simplistic way, where you just, you pick your bait that you want to do, and you throw it out into the water, and you sit there and you wait till you get the fish, and you hit A, and you yank the fish back in, and you're good to go. This time they kind of have this whole little system for it, which is pretty interesting. You pick your bait and your rod first, and you cast out into the water. And then once it's out there, there's this wheel that spins around, and you have to really quickly kind of snatch one of the colors in the bar. The big ones, obviously, for the lower tier fish, and then it turns kind of yellow and it's smaller, and that's the mid-grade fish. And then there's a tiny little like red colored thing, I think it is. And you want to select that one if you want to get the big bad boy fish. Once you catch the fish, though, you have to start reeling it in and making sure that you can get it in when you need to, without breaking the line or without the fish kind of running away and escaping. I found it to be radically more challenging. I'm probably, again, just a big idiot noob, but that was my experience with it. It was kind of an enjoyment to play with a new, more robust fishing system. Because another thing I want to talk about is that this game has made the transition from the last 2 games were a 2D kind of sprite-based world that you explored and stuff, and obviously it ran super great on the Switch. It looked really good. It harkened a lot of these PS1 nostalgia feelings for me, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This game, they've moved into the full 3D. It definitely feels a little bit clunkier. It feels a little outdated, and I think that this game actually came out in Japan a couple years ago, so there's probably good reason for that. However, the one thing that kind of floored me the most, for some weird reason, is that the character designs seem to have kind of turned out a little differently than I expected them in my head, I guess I'll say. And yeah, I'm going to kind of go a little pervy on this, but holy crap. I just have to say that for some reason, when they moved into 3D, they decided to make all the women, practically all the women, extremely busty. And there is characters that, I'd seen the 2D sprites for and stuff, and they seem to be pretty average build. And for some reason, when they made that transition into 3D, they decided to go like Ichi with it, because holy cow, these are almost unreal proportions with some of these characters, and some of the ways that they dress is kind of wild. Speaking of the way that they dress, one other thing that I thought was pretty welcome for the game is the addition of costumes. And there's a lot of different costumes that you can get for the characters, and you can put them on. It doesn't affect their armor or anything, it just affects their aesthetics, and I thought that was pretty cool. When you first start the game, it's going to ask you if you have any data from Trails 4, I believe it is, and Azure and 0, and if you have the data, you can upload that into the game, and you'll get bonuses, and the bonuses really come in the form of the costumes. So there's kind of some costumes that you can unlock right off the top if you have played those other games, which I thought was cool. Again, I didn't beat the other 2 games, but just playing them and just having the save data on the system was enough to trigger some of the rewards. So I actually thought that was pretty open and forgiving of NIS to allow us to get some rewards without even beating the game before. So that was cool. The other things that roll over, I think it came actually from Trails 4, if I'm not mistaken, was the ability to kind of pick the relationships that you had built with a lot of the characters. And so you can kind of choose if you want the characters to kind of feel better about you, I guess, than they normally would, or if you want them to start off on their baseline. And you can kind of pick anywhere in between as well. So if you have a bunch of characters that, you played in another game, like maybe on PC, and you don't have the save data to load it over, you can go and you can kind of manually select those ones that you remembered having, like, top tier relationships with, I guess. I'm like I said, I'm really not familiar. I kind of came into that blind, but I did think it was pretty interesting. They had a lot of import data features that are built into the game, and even without saves, you're still able to bring some of that stuff over. Just for fun, because I wanted to see what it would be like. I did bring everybody over with their maximum relationship status, just to see, what it did. I couldn't tell. I really couldn't tell from the bit that I played so far. So I'm not really sure what else to cover on this. Again, I do have to say that I am sorry that this wasn't like a more robust feature. I usually try to make these have a lot of information on them, and my first impression videos are often a lot more closer to a full review. This is not the case with this game, and you know, I need to put this content out, but it's just not, it's not something that was really in my wheelhouse, and I was really out of place with it the entire time. If I do feel like I have a bucket load of time, I would love to get into this, because like I said, the pieces of the story that I've been introduced in the first couple chapters have just been outstanding. I love that you can switch through the different character stories. It makes everything feel kind of refreshed. And, you know, the addition to extra mechanics and stuff in the game have been great, along with the costumes, and seeing everything in 3D has been really good as well. Final note, I do want to say, I didn't have, you know, an update on this because I played these games early in advance. So there may be a day one update, but there was a couple times where there is some performance slowdown in handheld on the Switch. I think that's just something that is worth mentioning. It does seem like there is struggling, but it is like really, 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 really minimal. I found that it did not impact anything a lot, but I did want to mention that because it is something that you are probably likely to encounter unless we get that first day patch. We will be doing a live stream of this later today on the day that this video is posted, so you guys can check that out. Come in and ask me any questions or tell me how foolish I am, which you're more than welcome to do, because honestly, like I said, there's a lot I have to learn, and this was just really over my head. I think I went too far in this one. Zero and Azure were fine, but Reverie is just, it's just beyond me. So if you guys like this content, hit the thumbs up. If you don't, hit the thumbs down. If you want to see more anime news reviews and gaming and a little bit of commentary lately, subscribe to Otaku. We'd love to see you back. I'll catch you on the next one.